Welcome to Give Them Romance, where we share book reviews and we interview authors and talk about all things romance. I am Suheidy, the co-host of Give Them Romance, and I'm going to share a little bit about me. My astrological sign is an Aries, hence the dynamic energy that I'm holding. I am originally from New York City, but I live on Long Island now. And my favorite drink of choice, we got to talk about beverages. I'm not gonna I'm gonna do both. So alcoholic beverage, a Moscow Mule, but it has to be done just right because if it's too acidic, I give it back. It's going back. And an espresso.
Hi, everyone. My name is Krista, and I am the co-founder and co-host here at Give Them Romance. I'm a grounded, earthy Capricorn with some fire in that chart. So, Suhedi and I have been friends for eons. And if you want to know that story, we can put that link in here for you, how to figure that out. But I'm originally from the East Coast, New Jersey, lived in New York for a long time where we became friends, and now I reside in Los Angeles. My favorite drink of choice, my AM drink, definitely going to be strong black coffee. Also, how I like my men. And at night, I like a whiskey neat because I like it strong. I like everything strong, apparently, y'all. And we are
That's
so,
that Capricorn in you.
that's that Capricorn in me,
I mean,
y'all.
I'm a Capricorn rising, so
There we go. Yeah.
that's why we get along so well.
Absolutely. So we are thrilled, thrilled, thrilled to introduce our first author that we are interviewing. I'm going to let her speak for herself, but we are interviewing the author of Situationship. It's juicy, y'all. It's very juicy. So
Very
we
juicy.
have very juicy, and we're going to hear all the juicy details. But we are here with author E.M Wilson, who spends her days designing apartment buildings across the U.S. and her nights immersing herself in the world of contemporary romance. Her passion lies in creating diverse casts and unapologetically sassy, sex positive leads.
Yes.
Through plenty of humor, spice, and modern subject matter, her novels provide a humanistic spin to the genre. Based in Seattle, Washington, she continues to expand her horizons alongside her high school sweetheart, checking off countries on their travel bucket list. Introducing EM. Can you introduce yourself and also tell us your sign, girl, and your drink of choice?
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me. Yeah, I'm E.M Wilson, M for short. I am Sagittarius.
That's why you wear that this fire energy. I was like, oh,
Mhm.
she's either Aries or she just gets me.
No, definitely a fire sign. Very problematic fire sign, as you can kind of tell in my
That just can be
dialogue sometimes.
problematic, I hear. Yes.
I won't tell you my moon and rising because that will absolutely scare
After
you.
hours.
But
After hours. Stop.
yeah, we're a spicy one over here. My drinks of choice, I don't actually drink alcohol anymore. Long story.
Okay,
But my
explain.
go-to is actually boba tea. I
Mhm.
That's my newest obsession. That is my sweet treat. That is my go-go juice. That's everything.
We love it. Yeah, and they have really great ones out in that part of the country.
I've tried it and I don't like it,
Not for you?
but I don't like many things. I'm very particular.
You're a little more particular than me. Than me.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna get started with some fun questions. You want to kick us off, Suhadi?
Yeah. So, what sparked Situationship? Because it is spicy and it is like I was in it. And I'm like, how did she come up with this storyline? Like this, what the spiciness? I was like gobsmacked.
Well, thank you. I know I do a lot sometimes, but yeah, it kind of came to me as a mix of me wanting to explore the fun parts of friends to lovers and enemies to lovers at the same time. So that's where I got the frenemies to lovers. I thought there was a lot of opportunity there to mix like we don't have to talk about it because we know each other so well, mixed with the I actually hate you and will read you for filth constantly kind of dynamic. So that was the perfect opportunity for that. And then a lot of it was just kind of most of my writing is bearing a deeper message underneath a lot of layers of humor and spice. So I use this as a way to show um, intersectionality from my experience in college. And so in architecture, it's a very small major. I was the only Black woman the whole time. We had a class of 17 to 25 people, depending on the year. And it was the same classes every semester. We were stuck together. That was my family. I thought that they were the best people ever. And then at some point towards the end and right after graduation, I kind of realized like, do I even like these people or am I just stuck with them? So, situationship is a mix of that, just kind of realizing that just because you are forced to be in these places doesn't mean that you always have to make it work. You don't have to hold on to the people that are put in your life. You do have a choice. So,
I love that.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that message because I think especially like growing up in certain cultures, you're just used to suck it up, even with family. Like, well, it's family, or it's like you've known each other since you were 4 years old, but you
Yeah.
know, it's boundaries and people change, and just because you grew up together doesn't mean you have to continue to grow together. So
Yeah.
I love that message.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's probably relatable for our experiences too. Suhaiti went to boarding school. I grew up in a school where most people didn't look like me. So I think we probably could relate to those elements. Okay, tell us a little bit more about your writing process. Like, what's your vibe? Take us on a journey.
Yeah, it's if I had to put it in a singular word, it's going to be chaos. I am the most chaotic writer ever. I have ADHD. I'm all over the place.
Love it.
I writing is actually very hard for me. I
Mm,
think people get surprised when because they see how much work I've done, but it is difficult. Between sitting down and doing it and then actually putting words together, it's hard for me. And
So
most days
do you feel like you're just like a type of writer that like writes in spurts because that's all you can get out? That's all you can
I
focus on?
between working, I kind of have to do that.
mhm.
I work best under pressure. So if I have some kind of deadline pressing on me, I do my best work. So give
Okay.
me 2 hours and tell me I have to have 20 pages, it'll get done. But if I
Yeah.
have 2 months before my deadline for my publisher, it's just like, I mean, what am I doing? I don't know how to write. I can't finish anything, nothing. And then the last 4 days, I get it all done.
Yeah.
So I really should just have 12 things going at once if I want to be successful.
You know what?
But you'll find me just writing on my couch
Okay.
and at nighttime. Don't ask me for anything in the morning. I am worthless. But yeah, at like 7 p.m. and beyond, that's the sweet spot for me.
That's interesting. I think everyone has such a like different writing process.
Hmm.
And I love that, you're candid about having ADHD and you got a book done and you got a book deal. So you're limitless, right? And anyone can do it, and despite the struggles of like writing or having a full-time job or being a mom or having something that, impedes you being neurodivergent, like you can get it done, right? You just have to work with like how you work. And that's something that I think as writers, like I had a hard time accepting because when you go to school for writing or you're taught about writing or take workshop, is like you have to write every day and you have to have a schedule and it has to be like a job. And I'm like, that's not how I write.
That does
I'm like,
not
man, I'm
work
never
for
gonna
me
get
at
anything
all.
accomplished if I have to do
No.
it this way. So I think it's great to share like how everyone, kind of creates in the way that's best for them. It doesn't make you wrong, right?
Right, exactly. Rules are there for guidelines, and it works for some people, doesn't work for others. There's not one singular path to success. And yeah, understanding yourself is the most important part because your writing is an art. It comes from you. When you get the most authenticity out of your own voice is when your story really stands out. So if you're so concerned with the way that other people who are nothing like you are telling you how to do something, you're never going to go anywhere because you're following a path that's not meant for you.
I love that.
Yeah. Message. Love it.
Okay, so tell us a little bit more about how you got your book deal as a debut author. I mean, listeners who are authors, inspiring authors, self-published authors, like they're gonna perk up your ears because I think this is something that most writers, especially romance writers, like that's the dream, right? Not for all, but for most.
Yes. And I have a very like the pathway that most people shouldn't follow. So
Which I
I
love.
was,
I love
yeah.
unconventionality. So yeah, it's like my favorite thing.
I started right after college. I was kind of late getting into writing, but when you're in college, especially in architecture, you cannot do anything. I didn't sleep for almost 5 years. Like can't do anything. So I finally started writing a novel. I finished this huge 150 word manuscript and was so proud of it. Had people reading it. They're like, I love this. I love this. So I sent it off. I started querying like writers do and wasn't hearing back from anyone. So I got in contact with a mutual acquaintance who was a published author and also working with an agenting type of office at the time and had him read over it. And he not only did not like it, his feedback, if you want to call it that, was horrendous.
Oh, no.
He said that I had no author voice. He said that my story didn't serve any purpose. It was very, amateur, which obviously I was an amateur at the time, but didn't really provide any way for me to improve or know what I needed to improve upon other than don't use repeating words, which duh, it's a draft. Of course, I'm repeating words, but I had nothing to go off of. And even though he didn't say maybe writing's not for you, he kind of it felt
Mhm.
like he was implying that writing was not for me. And so I joined Wattpad to get in contact with other writers and to hopefully get feedback as to what am I doing wrong? Like how can I improve? Can I actually improve? And very quickly I kind of blew up on that platform.
Oh, wait, what year was this? Because Wattpad has been around for a while,
What
right?
has been around for 18 years now. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
an adult now. I
Oh,
joined kind of in the middle of it, so about
Okay,
7, 8 years ago. Um, and yeah,
that's
I at
crazy.
the time it looked very different than it does now. But slowly over time, I just kept growing and I ended up getting noticed by the people on the platform. And then in 2023, I submitted for the award, the Waddy Award that they give out every year, and ended up winning the entertainment prize, which was to allow their book group and screen adaptation to shop my
Wow.
story, Situationship. And then at the same time, they were like, hey, cute, but like we'd also like to see you on shelves as a paperback. So if you're interested in that, let us know. And I was like, nah, duh. Like, take
hello.
it. Sure.
It's like, let me think about it.
And I mean, I obviously that was my intention from the beginning, but it didn't pan out. And so my intention changed. But things happen the way that they're meant to happen, and you either go with it or you don't. And I have been incredibly lucky this whole time. So I'm
Yeah.
very thankful for that guy.
So with the first draft, was he reading the first draft like your query of Situationship, or was it a different book?
It was a completely different book. It
Okay.
was what we would call now a romantasy.
Okay.
Um, it was, 150,000 words long, but it was pretty standard length for that type of book. But yeah, I gave that up. I could not look at that thing for years afterwards.
Yeah.
I went back to it trying to revise it, and I was like, you know what, this is just maybe this isn't for me. And maybe that was my issue at the time was I just am not meant to be in that subgenre, and that's okay. Because I mean, I feel more comfortable. It feels a bit more natural to be doing something like situationship anyway. So here I am.
That's amazing. So, we appreciate hearing that of your story. And it just makes me think about I'm an educator by trade and how important feedback is. That is helping people grow. It's not just like this is bad or wrong or my perspective. It's like it's supposed to be designed to help someone get better. And just we're so glad you didn't listen to his voice and just stop everything completely because then we wouldn't have this opportunity.
And
And
so
I
many people do, right? So many authors, first-time authors, they'll query, they get nothing, or they get horrible feedback or no feedback and feel awful and they just give up, right?
exactly, yeah. And I mean I did for a while, and I'm glad that I am stubborn and believe that there was something for me to say. And I think a lot of the reason why he had that feedback is because he saw nothing in my story, but my story was never meant for someone like him. So while he is the status quo, he was the cishet white man. He who already was published. He knows how he got there. That was the only pathway in his mind. I was writing a story about a woman of color who wanted to find love in her life, and that was not for him. So, like you're never going to make everyone happy. If you are like us, you're probably not going to like
Yeah.
make most people happy. So just chasing that audience and finding your people is just as important, and not giving up on your voice just because someone doesn't like it or somebody thinks you should be doing something else.
Yeah, that's why
Absolutely.
platforms like what Wattpad and even Substack, like we started a Substack for that very reason. Like we want to cultivate the audience um of readers that they're going to want to read and cheer on like Black love, Latino love, BIPOC love, and go on that journey, as we write our books, but also as we introduce them to the characters with our short stories. So I'm really grateful for like becoming a writer. I was a writer for a long time, but like all these things that have opened up, all these opportunities that have opened up that, 20 years ago didn't exist.
Awesome. Well, you led us right into the next question. It was just like we planned it
Uh,
there. How
yeah.
does being a woman of color impact your work and more broadly your experience? We see it did with this original pass with the other book, but anything you want to elaborate on there?
Oh yeah, sorry, I should have.
It's
Um,
perfect. We love it.
yeah, I mean, I think like you said at the beginning, we've all experienced that where we feel like we are the odd one out everywhere we go. We so often success means that we get placed into a room where we are the only one like us. And when it comes to publishing, it's very similar where if they're looking at it from a marketability standpoint, what people are reading the most of is going to be most likely to succeed. And that's going to be the white audience, the somewhat male audience. At least in romance, we have mostly females, 98% usually for that. But, like you always run the risk of people not attaching to your story because they don't want to hear what you have to say. But I mean, for me, when I'm reading, I find that works from people who are outside of the status quo, who are writing from a place of not fitting in or something that is not the mainstream. You get more of that depth. You get the backstory, the layers that you don't see in some of this mainstream stuff because there's so much more to the story from just existing in real life. And that comes out on the page. And a lot of the authors that I love are not afraid to introduce the dark stuff, the emotional stuff into what is basically a rom-com, and I after reading people like that, I realized that like if this is the story I want to write, and does it really matter if anybody likes it or not, if that's what feels truest to me, if that's what makes me happy when I read something like that. So um, it's it's a gamble, and if we want to be successful, I mean, you do have to chase that commercialized um, content to an extent, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's a hard question because my next question, even though it's not on the list, is like, how do you balance that? Like
Mhm.
chasing your bliss and then like the marketability aspect of publishing, right? Like, I think that's a hard balance to strike. I'm assuming you have a great team to help you, but that's only my assumption.
Yeah, and I think that also is rare because we're seeing even right now that a lot of um, women of color specifically are getting these deals and then finding out that they're not good. They're not a team that's going to support them. They want the story, but not the voice that they put into it. Like they want the plot, but they don't want to have the gritty parts of our lives in there. They don't want the politics, so to speak.
Right.
And
They don't
there's not
see
security.
color.
Yes.
What you do? What
Yes.
you
So I mean, I am completely blessed that the woman who signed me in a Todd, she is very much, she created the imprint to promote voices specifically from women and non-binary people who are often those who are overlooked. And so when they picked up my story, I was afraid at first, like, okay, well, I know I was doing a lot. And they're like, do you just want part of it? How much of it are you going to want to change? And they're like, yeah, I mean, you were doing a lot. Let's like reel it back in. But I mean, we think that your voice is just so honest and just unique and all these things. And I'm like, wait, like you like me
You really love
completely? Like,
me.
what is that about? And yeah, ever since like there's the back and forth, of course, because it's I'm still the odd one out, to put it nicely. So there's times where I have to stand up to myself and I get nervous because I'm like, if I stand up too much, are they gonna drop me now? Because now I'm now I'm really doing too much, but they never did. they were very patient with me and understanding, and just really were trying to pull out my voice in the way that I wanted to present it. And I am so lucky and blessed. That's my experience, because that's also not universal. And that applies to everyone. I mean, there are great publishers out there. There are ones who are not the best, and you have to be picky. And sometimes you can't be picky until you know what to look for
Yeah,
either. So, the experience only comes if you have the opportunity in the first place. So
Yeah.
it's just a lot. Publishing is difficult.
Yeah.
it is.
Well, we're going to get into situationship. We're going to get into some
Woo woo.
questions. So you spoke about, the feeling. So what's one thing that you wanted readers to feel from situationship?
I want them to feel everything.
I was gonna say, because I know what I feel a few times.
Yeah, I know. Like, I definitely want people to, feel like they need a little alone time with
Yeah,
someone.
a little spice.
For sure, yeah. But I did also want people to look back on their past selves and be okay with it, because a lot of it was, the coming of age stories. Like, they are a little bit older, but the thing I can't talk about without spoiling.
I know.
Um, the joy of having this group of friends that has known each other since forever is that those things don't have to be talked about. Like, they're there lingering in the background. Everybody knows it. We don't have to talk about it. But, you know, growing up means that sometimes you find that past version of yourself to be incredibly embarrassing and regretful. But that's a good thing, because if you look back on yourself 5, 10 years ago and you're like, oh my God, like, what was she doing? Like, that means that you've grown a lot, you've evolved into a better version of yourself. And that is the point. That's a good thing. And yeah, it's okay to make mistakes, but
I love that. Yeah. That means you've lived.
But you
yes, exactly.
Yes.
like with those jokes online when it's like, who were we 10 years ago when we would just like throw up 100 picture album on Facebook and title it like I'm on a boat or something like no editing photo. You just threw out every last photo you took and you put it up there and out there. We don't do that anymore. We don't do that. We've curated a little bit more than that. Okay, so continuing on with the theme of the book, we have two really powerful, interesting, dynamic main characters. To what extent are Teagan and Heath based on you, your life, people you know, a hodgepodge? Tell us more.
Yeah, I think a lot of people see the cover and they're like, oh, well, that's just you. I'm like, well, no. Actually, my artist had never seen a picture of me before it. So
Interesting.
that
The
was
curls right.
that
She
was
got the curls.
organic. So yeah, like I talked about my college experience, a lot of that is reflected in the friend group. Um, I would say that every single character in there is not, they're purely fictional. Like, the only the way I develop my characters are, I will take a piece of my life that I want to share, and then I develop that into an extreme. So while Teagan is like my anxiety and like that perfectionism made into this entire character who has all of this backstory and all these things going on, and then kind of me working through that part of what I went through, and like showing it as clearly as possible, also making it a good time along the way. Like, for Teagan, she is very much she comes off as being kind of cold sometimes and a little mean to her friends, but like they absolutely deserve it. And, she is the eldest daughter, like, fully, and I'm an only child, so like I'm closer to Heath in that aspect. But for her, her strength and her, um, I don't know, her overall personality comes from the fact that she is very she has a lot going on underneath, and that strength is a shield that she puts up, because it is harder to be vulnerable than it is to be that outward strong person. And when she lets down that shield for only one person, Heath, then we really see her growth, and like her addressing what's really going on and being truthful. And then same with Heath, like, he is problematic first.
Mhm.
People read it and they're just like, I hate him. And I'm like, you're supposed to. Like, not gonna make this perfect guy and then be like, oh yeah, but he's growing up and learning. His journey is having someone needing someone to show him that, he's behaving poorly because he's also hiding things inside, those emotions that a lot of men do not want to deal with. Like they would do anything but go to therapy type of situation. Like he would do anything but admit that he's having feelers. So you bring out the person who will make him feel more than anything, and then we'll start to go through that and he'll address his issues. So
Yeah, I loved that the theme of vulnerability was like hiding vulnerability, having to be tough, or with Heath, like typical male behavior of like pretending, right? Like I'm fine. And Teagan definitely reminded me of a lot of women in my family. I'm the middle child, my sister's the eldest, and like it's like she's like type A to a T of like what I would say my sister was. She's done a lot of growing, like Teagan did in the story, but it reminded me so much of my sister when she was like in her 20s. And then Heath reminded me of like so many men, so many men that you
So
hate
many.
to love, that you hate to love, but can't help but love.
Hate to love, love to hate.
Love to hate. So yeah, it was great. I loved I really loved that vulnerability was a theme and we got to see it from the female perspective and the male perspective. Yeah. Okay. Now, we're gonna talk a little bit about some music. We're music lovers here. So if you were making a playlist for Teagan and Heath, what would their signature song be? You can give me more than one if you have more than one. Like, what would be their soundtrack? Do they do those anymore? Like movie soundtracks? Maybe on Spotify.
yes, I
Yes,
do
ma'am.
actually have a playlist for the book. I didn't want to put it in the book because people have some opinions about that, but yeah, they did have me make one as part of it, so you can definitely check that out. My
We'll share
link
it with the
tree.
audience.
But yeah, I can't not project myself onto people. So of course, like for Tegan, I'm just like, obviously we got a bunch of Megan and a bunch of Beyonce because,
Yes.
two like unapologetic women who are just gonna put it all out there. They have so much life experience and the one thing they're not gonna do is let a man tell them what to do. So that's her. Just pick any
Yeah.
song in that repertoire. I think Megan's her in general, like sometimes I'll just be like typing out Tegan's dialogue. I'm just like, her. Just
Yeah,
think
I was
of,
thinking, so I wonder sometimes how authors like when they write their characters, because she was such a strong character, I was like, oh, I'm sure E.M was like like having a ball writing her, like attitude, you can't help it, but like just like get into it.
yeah, no, that's 90% of what I'm listening to anyway. It's just like empowerment themes, just upbeat things anyway. So and then for Heath, he's the one who's actually quoting songs and there, so it's like, oh, don't listen to that. But like, problematic Bay, we fix him.
We do. Yes, you do. And he was a good fixer-upper. Sexy fixer-upper. The way you described him, I was like, ooh, he's hot.
Oh yeah, I mean, you drop a 6'4" in there, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
hold on.
And all the cultural stuff. I'm like, okay.
Yes, and everybody has their opinions about mama's boys, but men raised by strong women are,
I think they're sexy.
oh yes,
Yeah. But
I'm back.
I'm speaking as a mom of a boy. So I
That's
know my
fair.
son who's 9 is a mama's boy, and I'm like, it's all right. We're gonna make sure that he's close to me, but like still, independent.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so thinking about some other characters, perhaps, did any of the characters end up in a different place than maybe you originally scripted or thought that they would end up when you started writing?
Definitely. Especially with the main two. Most writers will probably say that, we start off with a character in mind, and then as they tell us their story, as we're writing it with them, really, they kind of tell us who they need to be and reveal more about themselves. So in the very original draft that I had for years and years, just like a singular chapter up on Wattpad. People were like, "I need this. I need you to write this," and it was just the one. So it was kind of like half of Tegan's first chapter and then half of Heath's mixed together. So their little jokey jokes were in there from the beginning. But I did always have them as the long-term childhood friends who don't want to be in a relationship either with each other or in general for whatever reason. But yeah, the more that they talk to me and I figured them out, they just turn into these beautiful little people that had all these issues going on that they needed to address. And that's when they really came to me as, like this is really their coming of age story. This is when they're figuring themselves out and kind of coming into their own and they're going to address those things and when they're falling in love. Um, People sometimes ask me about like, did I insert the diversity in there just to be doing it? And that question makes me so mad sometimes because it's like I I don't set out to make a diverse cast. I am representing who I think can tell the story most authentically, and whatever that looks like is what it's going to be. And for Teagan to be the example of intersectionality, she has to be all parts of me that I've run into having all those parts about me that I can't control that somehow manage to let society use against me. And so, she's a bit of everything. And she can't separate all of those pieces and be like, well, today I'm just going to be a woman. I don't want to deal with the other stuff. Like today I'm just going to, all of that. Like that's there all the time. And yeah, I don't know. They pop up, I write them, and then we end up with a whole story somehow. I don't
Love it. I
We
love
we
it.
understand as writers ourselves. I never know where my stories are going. I start with like a and Krista knows, like, I don't plot anything out. I don't
You're a
like, I'm like, I
pantser.
have this character that keeps talking to me, and she's like, she has parts of me and parts of different people. And then I'll start writing, and I'm like, whoa, I didn't expect her to go there. I didn't expect her to do that. And then I'm like, wait, who's this guy coming at her? Like,
Did
I
I just
have to
write
just,
that?
it's
Did
just
I
like a
write
general sense.
that?
And then
Yeah.
I just write in spurts, and I'm like, huh, okay, well, what is she doing next? Like, what's happening? Like, I really just let the character speak to me. But I think that's the beauty of being a writer.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question that through the book, I was like, what is happening? What is this like shocking reveal? I feel like something's coming. What is it? I was pulling my hair like, but what? Like, I was like, is the book over and she's not gonna tell me? Like, I was like, what? So why did you wait so long for the shocking reveal, for the twist?
Okay, so I kind of do this in everything I write. My true love is mystery thriller
I was gonna say, I felt like
novels. Like,
it was suspense.
yes, it's a bit of the suspense, the fast pace, the like something is happening all the time type of thing. I don't I don't have any chill. I am truly a fire sign, so I had to be doing something, and I'm doing way too much. But in terms of plotting it out, like I am a plotter. I knew exactly when it was going to come up. Um, if people are to go back and reread, they'll see it. You'll see the spots where you're like, oh my God, like they said it right here and I didn't even pick up on it. And
I'm gonna have to go back.
I mean, good luck.
I had hunches over it, but I just
I
have to
didn't
see
know
what
it was gonna be
happens.
that. I didn't
Yeah,
know
no,
it was gonna be
it's
that.
a
I knew
lot.
it was gonna be the other, but that I was like,
Yeah.
where? I went back a few pages, like,
Hold
did I
on, hold on,
miss
hold on.
some hints?
No,
Because
at
it
some
was,
point I had a hunch and I was like, I
yeah.
wonder. And then I was like, oh, my spidey sense was right.
I can't obviously spoil it, but it's one of those things where when you are in that group of friends, everybody knows what happened except for that one thing that happened, and they don't have to talk about it. It's just implied the entire time, and that left me a lot of space to kind of deal with the aftermath of that while they're kind of like with their issues that they're having now, even many, many years after all of that happens. And then once all of that comes to a head and they realize, like, hey, maybe it is kind of attached to that thing that we don't like to talk about. Like maybe if we just like address both at the same time, we'll realize what the true issue is. And if that is growing up and learning to communicate and identify what we actually need and not be afraid to ask for it, even if asking for it means that the answer is this person is no longer in my life, then that's what it's got to be.
Ooh. And when you talk about communication, all the
Mm.
miscommunication, but again, when we talk about that age, that coming of age, and some of them friends, I was like, you're missing her point. She's trying to explain it to you. Okay, well, we're not going to share anymore. Everybody's got to buy the book.
Yes,
It's
buy the book.
available
No,
all the
twist is
places.
twisting, guys. It's twisting.
It is
And
Twisting.
it
twisting.
did feel like a suspense. I was like, as someone who does not watch anything suspenseful, I
You're
was
like
at the edge of my seat.
edge of your seat. Maybe you don't want to read it on an airplane. You might get a little hot. May not be the place to
Oh,
read it,
yeah.
though. May not be the place to read. You might want
I
to read
was
it
reading
by
it at
yourself.
night. I recommend reading it at night, or, when you're alone or with your partner. That would be fun. Read it to your partner.
There you go. All right. So now we want to know what is next for you, Em. Is this series continuing? I know there's rumor that something new is popping up. So tell us all the deets.
Yeah, I am leaving this one as a standalone. I know a lot of people would love me to follow Tegan's siblings, but I, having an authentic voice from my life experience, Levi is everybody's favorite character,
Love it.
including mine,
Yes.
and people would love me to expand on his story, but I don't believe that's my story to tell. I would love to work with someone who has that lived experience possibly and write it through that, but I am a true believer in own voices and those still needing to be pushed forward and that character being who they are, like it needs an authentic real voice that a voice like his needs to be heard. And it's not mine. But I am super excited that if you flip to the very, very end of the book, not in the real book, but like in the final page, you will see that I was signed for a second work with my publisher. And I got that deal
Yes.
even before the book came out, so I am just beyond blessed for that. It is in the same world. We do run into one of the scenes from Situationship, kind of from a different perspective, which is kind of
Ooh.
fan service there. But the second book is called Breakup for Two. It's about two strangers who meet when they are both broken up with publicly in a restaurant, basically right next to each other, and kind of deal with the aftermath together and end up realizing that they have a ton in common and the things that they want to, improve upon themselves while they heal from that public embarrassment works much better when they're together.
I
Um,
love that. That's a great
yes.
premise.
Here's the
Yeah.
question though. Where do you rate the spice in the next book compared to this one? Same, more or less?
Well, because
And
Tegan
if
and
you
Heath
can't say,
had,
you can't say, but we're
oh,
just curious.
I can say and I will say,
Ooh.
because Heath and Tegan have so much history and they've been doing the do for a bit. It happens very early on in Situationship, but in this next one, even though it's still going to be very spicy. Yeah, we have like, it doesn't happen in chapter 6, but yes, we explore a lot about the main character Liam's sexuality and kind of what that looks like from a male perspective. And yeah, yes,
Oh, I'm excited.
Hey, and when does it drop so we can put it on our calendars?
it is spring summer 2026.
Oh,
Gotta wait a
awesome. So yeah, that's
year.
I know, but no,
No,
but
I
that's great
know.
because sometimes it takes longer, but that's great. Yeah,
That's
that's
amazing.
awesome. So happy for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any final words you want to share with us, our audience, before we sign off?
Final pitch where people can find you on social
Yeah,
media, all
definitely.
that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to thank you both again for letting me come on here and talk about everything and just talk to you in general. It's just, like you said, community is so important. Supporting each other is just our support that we have for each other is unmatched. And we definitely need to continue with what we're doing and see even more of it. And You can find me online most places. I try very hard at social media for no reason. I'm not good at it, but I am E.M Wilson author and on most places. And yeah, look for me in your local bookstores online or in your local libraries too. Support your local libraries.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
As much
Yeah,
as
we'll make
possible.
sure links and things are on the post so people can find you easily. But thank you so much. This was so
yes.
much
Thank
fun.
you. It was so great
Thank
talking to you.
you. It was
Yes.
great talking to you too.